Outrun is a pioneer in the arcade racing genre and is simply one of the most iconic racing games of all time, beginning life in the arcade in 1986, being developed by Yu Suzuki, who would be responsible for the creation of many legendary franchises over the generations, such as Hang-On, Space Harrier, Afterburner, among many others, that would bring new fans into the world of the Sega arcade scene. The game would take a lot of its inspiration from the popular Cannonball Run movie, which Yu Suzuki was a fan of, so he wanted to develop an experience that would mix the styles of both the movie and Sega's Hang-On, with the emphasis focusing on pure adrenaline-fueled fun. Sega wanted to capitalise on the success of the hit Superbike game Hang-On, which was released only a year before in 1985, proving that the company were onto something that would inevitably set the stage for the future of arcade and console racing games. With this knowledge and many ideas in mind, work began, and the game would be designed with a small team in a short time frame of only 10 months. Once the game was released, it would quickly become one of the most played game cabinets in arcades that only snowballed in popularity as more units were shipped and became available worldwide in the following months and years. The 1980s was a successful time for Sega in the arcade market, producing many popular arcade entries, with Outrun becoming a critical worldwide success, with it being one of the highest grossing and most popular arcade cabinets for players of this generation. The game would play from a pseudo 3D third-person perspective, simulating a low-to-ground driving position that would also limit the player's field of view as you sweep through the many fast-paced corners and traffic at insane speeds while driving a Ferrari Testarossa. The concept of Outrun is similar to Hang-On, as you must race through checkpoints within a limited time frame, taking you through many distinctive locations and allowing you to choose your preferred driving route in a non-linear format toward the end of each section, which adds massive appeal and replay value to the experience. The course layout would change slightly, with region-specific versions presenting different alterations to locations and backdrops of race sections. These defining qualities would play a pivotal role in its success, as the game is very addictive and will keep you playing until you have seen everything it has to offer. The Outrun gaming cabinet is very distinctive in its design, being one of the first ever arcade racers allowing players to be seated in a racing style cockpit, equipped with its own steering wheel, which had the ability to create motion as you raced across the many tight corners, steep hills and sharp declines, presenting one of the most authentic and close to real life driving experiences for its time. This concept had been influenced by the success of Hang-On, which also had its own arcade cabinet setup, allowing players to be seated on a custom made superbike with a distinctive control mechanism that would force players to move the bike from side to side to mimic the movement of the motorcycle on screen, that would provide a truly authentic experience, unlike any arcade game seen at the time. So it was inevitable that Outrun would follow a similar play structure that made use of a racing cockpit and steering wheel setup, with the ability to move in different directions, making it feel that the car was using a modded hydraulic system that also tried to mimic how driving a real car would feel like. Sega was not only revolutionising the playability of these arcade titles, but they were making great leaps in developing and building the hardware used to play them, which was mesmerising when you could visually see and witness the power of your movement choices influencing what would happen on the game screen. Nothing could come close to this level of interactivity while playing games during this time. But that wouldn't be all that Sega would revolutionise with these games, as Outrun is also well known for its fantastic music selection list, another feature that would play a pivotal role in the game's massive success, allowing you to choose which track you wanted to listen to while you played. The memorable soundtrack from the game would also spark the influence of many developers to realise that a game's soundtrack was essential to the overall appeal and vibe that would prove to be as important as the gameplay itself. The game's success would not stop there, as Sega would add ports of Outrun to its console lineup with the Master System and later with the Mega Drive or Genesis, which brought light to the game for new fans who never got the chance to play the arcade original. Many variations of Outrun found home on many systems, but one definite factor remains the same, with the game's addictive qualities that guarantee a fun and challenging experience no matter the system you play it on. The game would also find a home on systems like the Atari ST, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad CPC, Amiga, among many others, which would also sell in high numbers. Many of these 8-bit ports of the game were seen as some of the best arcade alternatives at the time, bringing the fun elements of the experience to home consoles. The Sega Master System would see 2 versions of Outrun released on the console, with a port port of the original game, along with an exclusive standalone version of Outrun 3D, requiring the use of the additional glasses peripheral to present an early 3D experience. The game would allow you to change the playing perspective from 3D to 2D by pausing the game and selecting the required mode from the in-game menu that catered to those who didn't have access to the glasses peripheral. The game's visuals and level design differed slightly and would receive an additional selection of music tracks not seen in the original version that presented more unique ways to play this classic. Another 8-bit port of Outrun would find its way onto the popular Game Gear handheld console that yet again changed its visual style slightly but managed to implement the addictive gameplay, which was impressive for the time. It is literally the definitive pick up and play game to try in quick, short bursts when you have some free time or on the go. The success of Outrun marked a turning point in the development of future racing games within the genre, as many developers would rise to produce their own concepts of this popular style, with some also achieving success, with the likes of Chase HQ from Taito, among others, being released on consoles of the time. Many of these Outrun clones would also see releases on 8 and 16-bit consoles, each trying to add its own take on this distinctive formula. Outrun would also see a number of spin-off sequels released in later years, some of them on 8-bit systems, with Battle Outrun and Outrun Europa. Battle Outrun would only get a release on the Master System, while Outrun Europa would get ported to the Game Gear. Both games added elements of combat into the gameplay, where you had to complete objectives, all within a strict time limit, that took inspiration from games like Spy Hunter. These elements, however, were met with mixed results, as the game moved away from the core foundations of what made the original title so memorable. Ports of Outrun would also see their way onto future handheld gaming consoles such as the Nintendo Game Boy Advance that would be accessible as part of the Sega Arcade Gallery collection that came with additional ports of Super Hang-On, Afterburner and Space Harrier. The game would also be ported to the popular 3DS console that added new features and cars to race with. Outrun would eventually get a port to the Sega Mega Drive Genesis console in the early 90s that would be much closer to the arcade original in terms of visual and audio quality, as the console had more power at its disposal compared to its 8-bit counterparts. More sequels and spin-offs with Turbo Outrun, Outrunners and Outrun 2019, like the original game, would also be added to 16-bit systems with the Mega Drive or Genesis depending on the region you were in. Some of these sequels would however baffle fans, as the rights to develop them were distributed to different development teams that also wanted to try out new ideas and concepts, but as a result, many of these entries were seen as relatively lackluster experiences, which would be a far cry from the presence of the original. Still, these entries would open the gateway for many other experiences to join the long list of games in development, many of which would be better than you would expect. The Sega CD, along with the Genesis, would also receive many Outrun clones over their lifespan, with Jaguar XJ220, Chase HQ2 and the Lotus Turbo Challenge series. Power Drift would also become another popular arcade racer for Sega in the late 80s and early 90s, keeping with the same formula seen in Outrun but increasing the adrenaline level even higher, with more intricate tracks and level design, with the main focus on utilising drifting mechanics as you power slide your way to victory, throughout the wacky locations and environments you'll find yourself racing in. The game would later get ports to both the Sega Saturn and Dreamcast consoles in later years in Japan, giving fans a chance to experience the game in all its glory. Another racing game known as Radmobile would be released in arcades in 1990, becoming Sega's first 32-bit powered racing game that played very similar to Outrun, while adding new features not seen in previous games, with the addition of police chases, and would also see the appearance of Sega's most iconic mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog, for the first time. That would predate the development and release of the first Sonic game for the Genesis console. The game would be ported to the Sega Saturn under the name of Gale Racer in 1994 in Japan. Outrun, Turbo Outrun and Outrunners would be classed as the definitive entries in the series, as they were the only games released in the early years that stayed true to the original game's legendary formula. Luckily, future entries of the series on more modern consoles would also stay true to the original blueprint, that would allow gamers to witness stunning visuals, landscapes and even more fast-paced gameplay, while introducing new experiences for players to enjoy. There wouldn't be another sequel until 2003 with Outrun 2, that, like its predecessor, would also see great success in the arcade. Outrun 2 would also receive many additions and spin-off titles being developed in later years, with Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast and Outrun Online Arcade on newer gaming consoles with the PS2, PS3, Xbox and Xbox 360, that would include elements from the game while adding in new modes and features to expand on the original experience. The original Outrun itself would also receive a remake during the PS2 era under the Sega Ages 2500 and Classics collection in 2004 that would also revitalise many popular franchises of the 80s and 90s, with titles like Space Harrier, Super Monaco Grand Prix, Alien Syndrome, Panzer Dragoon, Phantasy Star and Golden Axe, bringing them to new audiences. The original Outrun would also receive ports on the Sega Saturn and Dreamcast consoles, with the latter being added as part of the Yu Suzuki GameWorks Volume 1 Arcade Classics Collection package that would only get a solid release in Japan. The Saturn version would only see a release in Japan under the Sega Ages branding and is often considered as the closest to the arcade original from all the ports released over the years. Outrun would make further appearances in some of Sega's other popular game series, with Shenmue on the Dreamcast and the Yakuza games on the PS2, Xbox and modern consoles, that allowed players to interact with virtual arcade experiences that would act more like side quests or distractions, giving you additional things to do outside of the game's main story, which was another unique way to experience playing video games in later generations, especially on more powerful consoles.
Checkpoint.
Outrun has become a timeless classic that is as much fun to play in modern times as it was way back in 1986, due to the simplicity of its design, soundtrack and visuals that doesn't look out of place in the current gaming landscape. Because of these reasons, we are now seeing fans and indie game developers create their own racing masterpieces in the same style as Outrun that you can find all over gaming marketplaces with Steam, itch.io, Good Old Games, among many others, that all try to capture the nostalgic elements of truly one of the greats of the gaming industry and the arcade scene. A few games that come to mind in this category are Run Out, a fan-made game made way back in 2003, along with Slipstream, Thug Racer, 16-bit Rally and Turbo Outrun reimagined, which would fully reflect the gameplay elements that players will relate to. I will leave links down in the description so that you can gain access to these games to try them out for yourself. And if you are a fan of this classic style of arcade racer, then these games are among some of the best that you can play.
She's getting I be racing, trying to stay away, just getting away, trying to escape it. Play it. Put it on the dog, rainy on the
The Outrun series has had many ups and downs along its fruitful journey, with many ports of the original and many spin-offs released over the years, that while having references to the series are often overlooked due to their lesser quality experiences, but that still doesn't stop fans from reminiscing about the memories of the past. Outrun 2, like its predecessor, also had many ports and extended versions of the game see releases in arcades and modern consoles of the early to mid 2000s, with the PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC, PS3, Xbox 360, with the likes of Outrun 2 SP, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, Outrun 2 SP SDX, and Outrun Online Arcade. There are so many ways to play these games that there really is no excuse as to why you shouldn't try them. The legacy of Outrun is as strong as it has ever been, as the original game has so many distinctive qualities that it managed to create the definitive blueprint for all future arcade racers to follow. Sega itself had really become a force to be reckoned with in the early years of the arcade scene, releasing so many genre-defining titles that have stood the test of time. Nintendo may have dominated the console market of the 80s, but it was Sega that revolutionised the arcade scene, with games like Outrun, Hang On, Afterburner, among many others, that laid the foundations for what was yet to come. You see, without games like Outrun, we would not have gotten the chance to witness many of Sega's future genre-defining classics with Daytona USA, and the almighty Sega Rally. That also defined their own subcategories within the arcade racing genre. And this is not the end of the story, as there is so much more to focus on with regard to these iconic racing games, with many of them reaching legendary status that cannot be ignored, which is why you should check out this next video, where we will dive behind the scenes of these iconic titles that changed an entire gaming generation.